Welcome to In the Hot Seat with the Tenney Group. I'm Spencer Tenney, and it's good to be with you. Today we've got Doug Grawe from the Grawe Group. I'm super excited about this conversation. Doug, welcome.
Thanks, Spencer. Appreciate it. Looking forward to getting uncomfortable, I guess.
Well, that is the name of the game. So before we do that, why don't we just take 30 seconds and just tell our audience a high-level overview about the work that you're doing over there at the Grawe Group.
Yeah, we are a team of folks that all were former in-house something, in-house lawyers, in-house CFO, in-house VP of Ops, who now are taking that experience and trying to help other trucking companies however we can in ops, in finance, in legal and risk management.
You know, I think that's just a really neat business concept that I'm looking forward to unpack this. So let's jump right in. So top 3 issues right now that are coming to your doorstep, people saying, Doug, I got to have some help here. What are those 3 issues?
I would say we always get asked about independent contractors. The 3 of us have a lot of experience with independent contractors. We grew up, 2 of us in particular grew up with Dart Transit Company. Dart Transit Company is a significant independent contractor history and independent contractor program. I would say I like to think I learned it from the best, which was Jim Hardman. And many other good attorneys in the industry as well. But so we're always talking to folks about independent contractor programs, how to be successful with them in terms of risk, but also how to be successful with them in terms of profitability and operations and so on. Safety is always a topic for people and what's going on with motor vehicle accidents. And there are plenty of people that are really good DOT compliance folks, are happy to give recommendations to those folks, but really talking to people about how do you have an operations-driven safety culture, and what do you need to do on a day-to-day basis to prevent accidents? And third, driver retention. Spending a lot of time, again, based on our track record, we worked with some companies, not just Dart, who have some very good driver retention practices and driver retention numbers. So talking with clients about how they can improve driver retention.
No, I love that. No, as you know, we've had some of the industry's best attorneys in the hot seat and got them uncomfortable as well. And you included as part of that. But what's interesting about your background is this in-house perspective. So specifically as it relates to risk management, how has that in-house experience affected the way that you counsel and provide advisory services to those that are, the carriers within our industry?
I think the short answer is I like to see if we can come up with a responsible yes, as opposed to being a no. I know that when you're in-house, if you say no to everything, what happens is you just get skipped. The sales team isn't going to bring stuff to you. The safety team's not going to bring up stuff because you're always saying no to everything that they want to do. What to me, good risk management is, okay, the idea makes some sense, but if we maybe tweak this or tweak that, we can do it. We can get to your goal, maybe just not do it exactly the way you wanted to it. That's what I loved about being in-house, and that's that I think what we bring that's a little bit unique is this notion of, yes, we can scare you to death with every possible bad thing that can happen. But let's talk about the realistic chances of something happen, how you would management if something bad did happen, and more importantly, what we can do to prevent it happening in the first place and still get your goal done. That's, to me, the in-house perspective.
I love that. So let's just hang out there for a second. Can you just tell me about a time where, a carrier came, transportation company came and they said, hey, I've got this issue. Maybe they had a ultra conservative attitude towards it. Tell us about a time where you were able to kind of help them get to a solution while kind of working through some of those pre-existing, attitudes about risk.
Yeah. So this is a really simple one, but it had to do with shipper contracts, and it had to do with, they were adamant that we absolutely need a liability cap in our contracts, that's not over X amount of dollars, and we'll never sign a contract. We won't do any business with anybody that won't do that. As a lawyer, I love it. That's a great policy. But you're going to be hurting yourself turning down business. If you know that you've got a customer that doesn't has a product that's just flat out not worth that much money, why can't you still say yes to that, even if they don't want to, for whatever reason, aren't willing to put a cap on a contract? Now, that's a really simple example, but getting the client to understand it's okay to say yes to this because A, they don't have the stuff that's valuable. B, they actually even tell you what the stuff's worth in the way that they were tendering it to you. Not every shipper does, but in this instance, they were. So if we train your frontline people on how to look for that and say yes or no, that's another way we could manage the risk. So that's probably a too basic of an example. But I do remember that conversation with a client, that they were just really frustrated by their contracting process. And they said, we're being too restrictive. We can agree to more in this contract. That client was also arguing about, jurisdiction and arbitration clauses, which, as a pure lawyer, I can understand why a bad arbitration clause is bad for you. But are you really going to turn down $1 million opportunity with a client over an arbitration clause and stuff? Or do you think you would probably just work out any dispute with that client?
I mean, that's great color. I appreciate that. So let me transition over to driver retention. Now, I understand that you have the silver bullet on how to solve this problem. Is this? That's what your people told me when we were booking this event here.
Exactly, and I am a multi-billionaire in the making. Yes. I don't, not by any stretch of the imagination, but we do work with some clients who we have some history with some clients. We work with some clients today who have good driver retention. And the silver bullet is there is no silver bullet. And what we bring to the table a lot of times is just talking to people about, you say all these nice things, you market them, it's a part of your orientation, all that kind of stuff. But what are you actually inspecting of your people? Are you out there on the floor listening to the way you're treating the drivers? Are you getting that feedback from drivers? There's other good companies in the industry that have great mechanisms for collecting some of that feedback, and so on, some of which I know have been guests on your show. There are, to me, what we're a big believer in is, what are you doing in the little things to improve driver retention and really just to improve the way you treat people? I'm not an expert, and we're not experts in pay. I can't tell you whether or not you're paying above market, below market, or all that kind of stuff. My only pay comment is pay simple and pay right. But really, we want to talk to you about, hey, if you were going to engage us, let's get a defined time. We're going to look at A, B, and C, and we're going to listen to your people. We're going to watch the way it actually happens and give you feedback on how, and interview your drivers and give you that feedback on, this is the way they feel, this is the way they're treated, and this is the stuff that made them look. A colleague of ours on our team, one of our team members, what he says all the time is, you got to think about windshield time. We may have a conversation with a driver and we think it goes okay. We hang up the phone and we move on to 6 other phone calls and 23 other emails. That driver keeps driving and they stay behind the windshield and they can replay that conversation over and over again. So the importance that you need to put on having good conversations, good interactions, that doesn't mean telling the driver everything they want to hear. Sometimes you got to deliver bad news, but training your people on how to give that type of messaging, that stuff's big. That improves retention quite a bit.
No, that's good stuff right there. I think what was interesting, just in an article this afternoon, Transport Topics, talking about how more pay is not necessarily the solution. Because yes, we want drivers to earn more, but just paying them more is not necessarily the right solution for that. So where do you see carriers, maybe you can tell us about something that you've worked with recently where the carrier was able to kind of address that tension? Because what we're seeing now is that people are getting paid more and then they're just adjusting their home time, doing 4 days instead of 5 days. They're earning the same amount of money. They're having a better lifestyle, but we're not really addressing the capacity concerns on the carrier side. So in 20 words or less, thread that needle for us, Doug. I'll
see if I can do it in 25.
What are some of the considerations? How does someone process that decision?
Yeah, and that's a great point. I'm seeing the same thing among our clients, this whole notion of, hey, I'll give you a 5% raise in hopes that I'll get 5% more productivity. And really what's happening is I'm giving the same amount of total money and getting 5% less productivity. People are valuing the time. So what we've talked to people about, we have talked to people and helped them with, I can't say whether or not you're paying the right amount, but we have talked to a lot of people about how to simplify the pay. And there are other pay experts that are way better than us, but we've helped a little bit just with, hey, can we simplify this? So I think that is something. I think also of making sure you're very clear at the outset with your expectations and what their expectations are. Having that expectations exchange. We've had a lot of success with clients, at least removing the frustration, even if you know on the outset, this driver is not there. Every driver early on is going to tell you they're a hard runner and they do everything, and plenty of them are. But to figure out ways to get to the crux of it, do they really want to run 10 days in a row, or do they want to be home every weekend? And making sure you've got the freight and the drivers and the equipment that are all working together. If you have a model that is, we find drivers to try to fit our freight, or we just try to find freight to fit our drivers, you're not going to be terribly successful. You have to have them all working together. That recruiting, that ops, that sales, that's what I should have said. Try to say in 20 words or less. Make sure those three departments are tied at the hip.
I appreciate that. So I'm really fascinated about this segment of your business that provides this transition resource at kind of that C-level talent for folks, and especially why that's interesting. I mean, because of the Great Resignation. I mean, we're not just competing with other trucking and logistics companies for the top talent. I mean, all industries are competing for that same talent. So tell us about a scenario where maybe somebody lost some talent. They needed to buy time from a transition. What did you actually do in that role, just to provide our audience a little bit of illustration of how that works?
Yeah, we've had a couple of those opportunities, and they went well, and I think the clients would echo that. One, for example, was an unexpected resignation. They experienced a great resignation, and we did step in to run operations for the team. And what we talked with the client about is, this isn't about just holding the seat warm. Okay, that you can find a lot of people just hold the seat warm. It was talking with the client and say, what were the initiatives that you were trying to accomplish? Okay, so let's keep making progress on those things, not to redesign it and do it our way, but just tell us, client, what you wanted to get done, and we will make sure we keep making progress. Two, let's do calm the waters. Okay, people always get a little bit nervous whenever they see turnover above them. What's going on? When you can say this person's been in this chair, there is no emergency you're going to throw at them that they haven't dealt with or dealt with similarly. They've been yelled at by customers. They've been yelled at by drivers. They can deal with those issues at 3 o'clock in the morning and 3 o'clock in the afternoon. When you know you've got someone who has done that calms the waters quite a bit. So I would say it's been two things. We got to move the needle. It's not just keep the seat warm. So let's make sure we've got a plan with what we're going to do at this time. That's what made it successful. And the little bit of that been there, done that, we can deal with these fires things. So that's been one example. The other example is we've had some clients reach out to us who are they want to move the needle with their business. They're getting ready for some kind of a bigger transition. They're getting ready to maybe try to do some big growth. And the people they have are great for what they are today. And they think they can grow with them, but they can't do it right now. So can we come in and say, okay, we've been through big growth periods. We've been through major transactions. Can we be that hand holding along the way, pretty close? Not just from afar, not just a phone call once a week, but pretty close, to help develop that person and get the company through what they're trying to get through.
I like that. So let me ask you this. Set aside driver recruitment, driver retention, driver pay. What is maybe an industry trend that you're most excited about as we go on, as we step into 2022? something that's just very interesting to you. What would you say that is?
I think what is interesting in transportation is there's a lot of new energy and new ideas coming from a variety of angles. So maybe it's a little bit of a cop-out answer because I don't know that it's any one thing, but you have new money coming in from whether it's venture capital or I suppose it's variations of venture capital. They're coming into the industry that see that this is such a ripe industry. So that's challenging some older thought and saying, okay, what can we do different? But you also have kind of the older guard saying, hey, not on my watch. Don't think that you can do this better than we can. We know what we're doing. So watching that happen, watching people respond and coming up with whether it's new safety technology and new safety practices. You talked about the great resignation and we're competing with people outside of the industry. What's happening on the employment front? We're becoming better employers as an industry. And I think we have a long ways to go in that front, but I'm excited about what's happening on the employment front so that we can develop future leaders of the industry. We have a great industry. It's awesome. We move the stuff that moves the world. That is so cool to me. And I want more people in this industry getting excited about it. So maybe I'd put it on as we're updating the way we do business. And I think that's awesome.
Well, I agree with that. I've got one last question, a little wild card here for you, Doug. So, to that point, we have so much new talent, fresh energy coming in to our industry. And I'm thinking about young Doug, maybe 15 years ago, finding his way in the transportation and logistics space. What advice would you give young Doug that maybe some of our new people in this industry would benefit from as far as how to be successful and how to connect and bring value to this industry?
I would say two things. The first is take chances, get out there and learn stuff. Be a sponge, learn. One of the things that made me successful early on in my career is I was not afraid to go down to the then general counsel's office. I wasn't even working. I was an intern, not in the legal department. But just going to the general counsel's office and say, hey, I'm in law school. I'm thinking about doing this down the road, and just picking up projects, like anything that you would let me do. I'd love to do it. So talking with the Darts owned by the Oren family, talking with the Orens just casually. Tell me about what's going on in the industry. I'd love to learn more about what's going on. So find an avenue to learn about what's going on in the industry and what's going on in the company and whatever it is you want to pursue. So that'd be number one. Number two, find those mentors that value you and recognize what you bring to the table beyond just X's and O's, but who you are as a human being, and latch onto them and again soak up what they've got to offer. Those two things are big.
I think that's timely advice, sir. So I just want to thank you for joining us at the hot seat. That's going to do it for us today. We'll see you next time.